doing?
The challenges of dealing with someone this intoxicated, the fact that there's unpredictability in their actions.
Guess, you want to say hi? Guessy, say hi. We back, gang. Okay. Guessy, do you want down? Oh, I'm sorry. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Let's go. We have a special guest today. My lovely doggish thing. Just look at the fans and say hi. Hey, look here. Guys, let's get into part 2 of Pai Hsiao-yen kidnapping and murder. You looking around or something? Don't tell me you see that stupid spider. Part 2, Chapter 6, The Race Against Time. As soon as the kidnappers made contact, Pai Bing-bing's life became a series of organization. Phone calls and impossible decisions. Every time the telephone rang, there was hope that her daughter might still be alive. Every conversation came with another demand, another threat, another set of instructions. The kidnappers insisted that Pai Bing-bing prepared the ransom and wait for further directions. It's just smelling my desk. Put a spell on you. Let's go. I insisted that to prepare the ransom and wait for further directions. They warned her repeatedly not to involve the police. If they saw officers nearby, they claimed the deal would be cancelled, and Pai Hsiao-yen would pay the price. Like many families in similar situations, Pai Bing-bing found herself trapped between two terrible choices. If she ignored the police, she risked making a mistake that... Oh. Just lean back, baby. Oh. Hey, look up. Look up. Oh, did I scare you or something? Baby. I love you. You look so done with me. I swear I don't abuse him. I swear. If I did, kill me. I mean, how could you hurt this little thing? Look at you. And we know we're not twins. You don't see that, okay? If she cooperated with the investigators, she risked provoking the kidnappers. Neither option guaranteed her daughter's safety. Police, meanwhile, faced their own dilemma. Their responsibility was to rescue a 16-year-old girl and arrest dangerous criminals. Investigators hoped they could monitor the ransom exchanges, identify the kidnappers, and intervene before anyone else was harmed. At the time, many officers believed that with careful surveillance and coordination, they would still... Oh, are you tired, baby? Oh. What are you doing? I'll hold your foot. Okay. They still had a chance to save Pai Hsiao-yen. Unfortunately, the investigation was unfolding in full view of the public. Chapter 7. Taiwan watches every move. Within days, the kidnapping dominated Taiwan's news. Television station interrupted programming with updates. Oh. Hold up. Oh, my bad, guess. Newspapers ran front page stories every morning. Radio hosts discussed the investigation throughout the day. Outside Pai Bing-bing's home, dozens of reporters gathered around the clock. Camera operators waited for any movement. Photographers chased every vehicle. Journalists followed family members, lawyers, and investigators. Every rumor became breaking news. As the crisis continued, the media attention only intensified. The kidnappers arranged multiple ransom exchanges, often instructing Pai Bing-bing to travel a specific location with the money. Then at the last minute, they would change the meeting place again and again. Yes. You want some? You need some? You want to say something? Oh, sigh. And you're stepping on my hip. Okay. That's totally chill with me. Hold on tight. I'm gonna pull forward in my chair. Wow. Investigators tried to stay one step behind the kidnappers without revealing their presence, but there was another problem: television cameras. But whenever Pai Bing-bing left her home, reporters followed. Police vehicles were followed, news helicopters monitored traffic. Some broadcasts even showed locations connected to the ongoing investigation. Critics later argued that this level of coverage may have allowed the kidnappers to monitor police activity. Almost in real time. That's my sister. Oh. I'm gonna let him out. Trinity Blair. Anyway, my sister said, Did she have you upstairs? Yeah, I did actually. There's nothing you can do about it. No one could. The others believed criminals were already suspicious and simply used the media as another excuse to delay exchanges. No one can say with certainty whether the media coverage directly caused the ransom attempts to fail. What is known is that the kidnappers repeatedly canceled meetings after claiming they had spotted police. The result was heartbreaking. Every failed exchange meant another lost opportunity to bring Pai Hsiao-yen home. Chapter 8: The Endless Negotiations. Over the following days, the kidnappers contacted Pai Bing-bing numerous times. Investigators reported that there were more than 20 attempted arrangements for a ransom exchange. Each followed a similar pattern. The kidnappers would provide instruction. Pai Bing-bing would prepare the money. Police would quietly position themselves nearby. Then suddenly the kidnappers would call again. The deal is off. Sometimes they changed location. Sometimes they changed the time. Sometimes they simply disappeared. Imagine the emotional trail. Every canceled meeting meant another sleepless night. Newspapers ran. Never mind. Another day wondering whether Pai Hsiao-yen was still alive. Oh, there are my hands. Friends later recalled Pai Bing-bing barely rested during those days. She remembered focused on one goal: getting her daughter back. Investigators, however, began to fear the time was running out. Chapter 9: Behind the Investigation. As the negotiations continued, police worked tirelessly behind the scenes. Detectives analyzed every phone call. Voice recordings were examined for all wait. Wait, I lost my line. Wait! Examined. Telephone records were reviewed in an effort to trace the kidnappers. Officers interviewed witnesses who might have seen Pai Hsiao-yen in the morning she disappeared. Teams searched in possible locations where she could have been held. Because mobile phone technology was so relatively limited in 1997, investigators did not have many of the tools available to law enforcement today. There was no GPS tracking, no smartphones, no location sharing apps. Many surveillance cameras that are common today simply did not exist. The investigation depended heavily on witness statements, telephone analyze physical evidence, and traditional detective work. Despite enormous public pressure, investigators struggled to identify the people responsible. Meanwhile, the kidnappers appeared calm and organized. They knew exactly how to manipulate the situation. Chapter 10: The Cold Truth. I have 2 pages left. To identify people responsible. Meanwhile, the kidnappers appeared calm and organized. They knew exactly how to manipulate the situation. Chapter 10. While Pai Bing-bing desperately continued trying to save her daughter, investigators now believe something devastating has already happened. Evidence later suggested Pai Hsiao-yen likely had been killed only a few days after her abduction. Yet the kidnappers continued making ransom demands. They continued calling. They continued giving instructions. At one point, they even convinced Pai Bing-bing her daughter was still alive. According to investigators, someone impersonated Pai Hsiao-yen during one of the phone calls. For a grieving mother, hearing she believed was her daughter's voice renewed hope. She continued believing there was still time. Sadly, investigators would later conclude that hope she was holding on to had already been taken away. Oh my god. Chapter 11, April 28th, 1997. 2 weeks after the kidnapping, the search came to a tragic end. On April 28th, workers discovered the body of a young girl in a drainage canal in what is now Pai City. Authorities quickly arrived at the scene. The victim was identified as a 16-year-old Pai Hsiao-yen. News spread across Taiwan within hours. The country fell silent. Two pages left. For many people, there still had been hope she would have been rescued alive. Instead, the outcome everyone feared had become reality. Investigators found her body had been weighed down with heavy dumbbells in a appeared attempt to conceal it. The discovery marked the beginning of an entirely new phase of the investigation. Manhunt. No longer was this solely a kidnapping case. It had become a murder investigation. Chapter 12, The Autopsy. Okay. Medical examiners conducted a careful examination to determine how Pai Hsiao-yen died. Their findings revealed that she had suffered extensive physical abuse while being held captive. The official cause of death was determined to be strangulation along with severe internal injuries. Out of respect for Pai Hsiao-yen and her family, I won't go into deeply graphic details. The important fact is that the investigators concluded she had endured significant violence before her death. Yeah. The important fact is that investigators... No, I already read that. Another painful discovery soon followed. Based on the forensic evidence and the condition of the body, investigators believe Pai Hsiao-yen had likely died several days before she was found, possibly while the kidnappers were still contacting the mother and demanding money. That meant the ransom and the negotiation had continued after she was no longer alive. For Pai Bing-bing, this realization was almost impossible to comprehend. She continued answering the phone. She continued following the instructions. She continued believing she still had a chance to save her daughter. Chapter 13, The Second Outrage. As if the tragedy itself wasn't enough, another controversy quickly erupted. Several news organizations published graphic photos taken after Pai Hsiao-yen's body was discovered. Don't do that. And I'm serious, don't do that. That's actually disgusting. Some investigators discovered it in newspapers. Some images appeared in newspapers. The others widely circulated through television coverage. Many people were horrified. Families questioned such deeply personal, disturbing images had been made public. Journalists, editors, and media executives faced intense criticism for placing I'm done. And sensational headlines above the dignity of the victim and her family. That debate spread across Taiwan. Where should journalists draw the line? Who knows? But I know for sure before that. Because if I ever become a journalist, I would draw a line. And I mean a line before that. Where should journalists draw the line? When the public's right? When does a public's right to know became an invasion of privacy? Those questions still discussed in journalism classrooms and newspapers today. The Pai Hsiao-yen case became one of Taiwan's most significant example of the ethical responsibilities that came with reporting on crime. The discovery of Pai Hsiao-yen's body devastated Taiwan, but the investigation was far from over. Police still had to arrest, but violent criminals were still free, and over the next several months, they committed even more shocking crimes while authorities launched one of the largest manhunts in Taiwanese history. I'll see you in part 3. Bye-bye. Hello and welcome back to Double Horse Podcast. Today we are doing part 3 of Pai Bing-bing kidnapping, also known as Pai Hsiao-yen kidnapping. And I do have my Invisalign in, so I will have a lisp. Only with my S's though. Ish. But yeah. Anyways, part 3, chapter 14, The 3 Men. With Pai Hsiao-yen's body was discovered, investigators now had a murder to solve. But they weren't simply searching for a single suspect. Police were looking for 3 men. Chen Chen-sing, Li Tong-shen, and Kai Tan-min. Ish. Something like that. The 3 men were already known to authorities, and investigators identified them as the principal predators in Pai Hsiao-yen kidnapping and murder. But instead of surrendering, the 3 disappeared. And this was only the beginning. What followed was an extraordinary manhunt that would last for months. During that time, 3 fugitives would be connected to additional kidnapping, shootings, and murders. Chapter 15, The Search Gets Bigger. After Pai Hsiao-yen's murder, photographs of the 3 wanted men were still distributed throughout Taiwan. Their faces appeared on television, appeared in newspapers, their names became known in the country. The public was encouraged to report anything suspicious, but finding the 3 experienced criminals in a densely populated area wasn't easy. The suspects knew that police were searching for them. They changed locations, they avoided being seen, and whenever they believed they were close to caught, they became more desperate. Instead of disappearing completely, however, they continued committing crimes. That decision would eventually create the trail of evidence that helped investigators close in on them. Chapter 16, Another Kidnapping. On June 3rd, 1997, the fugitives kidnapped the Pai Country Councilor Tessa Min Tang, something like that at least. The crime demonstrated that the men were willing to continue taking enormous risks even while they were among Taiwan's most wanted fugitives. Tessa was held for ransom, and the kidnappers reportedly abandoned approximately 6 million. The kidnapping sent another wave of fear through the country. The public was now asking a terrifying question: if these men could abduct a politician while already being hunted for murder, who was safe? Police pressured intensified. But the fugitives managed to escape again, and 2 months later they struck again. Chapter 17, August 1997. On August 6th, the group kidnapped a businessman. The victim was held for ransom, and his family eventually paid approximately $4 million NT. Unlike the earlier kidnapping, the family did not involve police. The businessman was eventually released, but investigators now had another crime to connect to the same 3 fugitives. The situation was becoming increasingly alarming. These men were no longer simply wanted for one kidnapping and murder. They were becoming the center at an expanding crime spree. Police needed to catch them before another person was hurt, and on August 19th, they finally got a break. Chapter 18, The Shootout. It was the morning of August 19th, 1997. The 2 police officers received information that the 2 fugitives might be hiding in an apartment and watching it in Tapai's Zangshan district. The officers approached the location and then gunfire. The suspects opened fire on police. The officers called for backup. Within minutes, the situation escalated into a major armed confrontation. Police began surrounding the area. More officers arrived. Eventually, hundreds of officers were involved in the search, including members of Taiwan's Specialized Thunder Squad. The neighborhood effectively became a massive crime scene. That is so crazy, bro. 1 police officer was killed, another was wounded. The suspects attempted to escape through the area. One of them was Lin Changshan. He was shot multiple times during the confrontation. Police eventually cornered him in an alleyway. He had nowhere left to go. Rather than surrender, Lin took his own life. He died that morning, but 2 men were still missing: Chen Chang-sing and Kwai Ten-man. The manhunt continued. Chapter 19, 2 men left. After Lin's death, the public might have expected the case to finally come to an end. Instead, it became even more frightening. Chen and Kuo remained at large. Police continued searching for them. Their photographs remained everywhere. The fugitives knew that their options were disappearing. They couldn't simply return to normal life. They couldn't safely travel. They couldn't openly contact friends or relatives without risking detection. But they still needed a place to hide. They still needed money, and according to investigators, they were becoming increasingly desperate. Then, in October, investigators received another shocking development. I have 19 minutes left before I'm fully out of storage on my phone, so that's like a good thing. No, it's not. It's a bad thing. Anyways, Chapter 20, The Plastic Surgeon. On October 23rd, 1997, Chen and Kuo entered the office of a plastic surgeon in Pai. They had a terrifying request. They wanted immediately facial reconstruction. Their goal was to change their appearance enough to make it more difficult for police to recognize them. The surgeon explained that the procedure could not simply be performed immediately. There were practical and medical limitations, but the fugitives apparently believed the surgeon was delaying them. They became suspicious that the police might have been contacted. The situation escalated. The surgeon was killed, his wife was killed, and a nurse at the clinic was killed. 3 innocent people were dead. The fugitives fled. The murderers sent another shock through Taiwan. The men who begun with the kidnapping for ransom were now connected to a growing list of violent crimes. And the public was terrified. Police knew they had to find the remaining fugitives. Chapter 21, The country watches. But by this point, the case had become much bigger than the murder of Pai Hsiao-yen. It had become a natural crisis. My bad. Taiwanese television stations continued following every development. That ain't good at all. Newspapers published updates on the manhunt. Police recognized the fugitives' faces almost everywhere. The public was being confronted daily with stories of kidnapping, shootings, murders, and police searches, and yet Chen and Kuo continued to evade capture. The pressure on law enforcement was enormous. Every failed search generated criticism. Every additional crime created more public fear. And behind all of it, it was a grieving mother who had already lost her daughter. Chapter 22, Kwai Ten Men. By November the net was finally closing around Kwai Ten Men. Police located him in Pai. Once again, he was surrounded. There would be no easy escape. According to official accounts, Kuo chose suicide rather than surrendering to the police. His death brought number of criminal 3 fugitives still alive to 1. Chen Qing-sing, he was now the final remaining problematic suspect. For 7 months, he had escaped capture, but there was nowhere left for him to hide forever. Chapter 23, The Last Fugitive. By this point, Chen's name had become synonymous with fear. He was wanted for the murder of Pai Hsiao-yen and was connected to a series of other violent crimes committed during the months he had been hiding. Police had spent months searching for him, but Chen wasn't simply trying to stay hidden. He was also trying to protect the people close to him. Several people committed to Chen had been arrested in connection with the investigation. Chen wanted leverage. He needed something that would force police to listen to him. And in November 1997, he found it. He chose a target around I don't know. that would create enormous attention, forcing diplomat's family. Chapter 24: The Alexander Family. On the evening of November 18, 1997, Chen entered the Tapai home of South African military attached Morgan Alexander and took members of the Alexander family hostage. The situation immediately became an international incident. Chen was armed. The family was trapped inside their own home. Police surrounded the area. Negotiators were brought in, and once again Taiwan was watching, but this time the stakes were even higher. There was an innocent hostages inside the house. Every decision made outside could affect whether those people lived or died. The standoff lasted approximately 21 hours. Police had balanced two priorities: capture Chen and keep the hostages alive. Chapter 25: The Final Negotiations. 12 minutes. How many pages do I have? 2. 1, 2, 3 and a half. The final negotiations. Negotiators worked to convince Chen to surrender. The situation remained tense. Police could not simply storm the building without risking the hostages. Chen eventually began releasing some of the hostages. Others remained inside. Among the people involved in the negotiations was political Frank Einstein, who helped communicate with Chen and encourage him to end the standoff peacefully. The negotiations continued into November 19. Eventually, the remaining hostages were released. After 7 months as one of the Taiwan's most wanted fugitives, Chen Qingxing surrendered. The manhunt was finally over. Chapter 26: A Confession. After his surrender, Chen was taken into custody. He admitted involvement in the kidnapping and murder of Pai Hsiao-yen and was questioned for the many other crimes committed during the months he had been on the run. Investigators now had approximately to reconstitute the entire crime spree. For the first time, something could finally connect evidence with evidence, witness testimony, and suspect movements. The case that had begun with missing 16-year-old girl had expanded into much larger investigation involving multiple kidnappings, murders, shootings, and sexual assaults, also known as SA. Ugh, my throat. But there was still one question that mattered most to Pai Bing-bing. Why did her daughter have to die? And even after the arrest, there was no answer that could ever make that loss understandable. So yeah. Chapter 27: The trial begins. With Chen family in custody, the legal process began. Prosecutors presented evidence connecting him to Pai Hsiao-yen's kidnapping and murder, as well as the additional crimes committed during the months that followed. The case was enormous. It involved multiple victims, multiple locations, multiple kidnappings, murders, sexual assaults, or SA, weapons, and a nationwide manhunt. Chen ultimately received multiple death sentences and additional life sentences for the crimes of something to him. The court was also examined to the involvement of other people connected to the case. The legal proceeding continued for years as different suspects of the case were appeared and revealed. One particularly case issued involving Chen Ching brother-in-law whose alleged involvement in Pai Hsiao-yen kidnapping was disabled. Disputed during the legal processes. This demonstration something impacted almost criminal cases being associated with a suspect is now automating proof of guilt. The court has examined evidence against them and individuals separately. My handwriting actually sucks. What the frick? Okay. Chapter 28, the end. Chen Qing remained on death row after his conviction. In 1999, the courts finalized his death sentences for the crimes and legal processes came to an end. On October 6, 1997, Chen was executed. The man who had spent months terrorizing Taiwan was finally dead. But for Pai Bing-bing, there was no victory. There was no punishment that could bring her daughter back. There was no court ruling that could ease the memories of 1997. And there was no... Hey, Ziggy. Skip. Hey, Ziggy. Skip. My technology. Hey, Ziggy. Skip this song. Fine. And there was no execution that could undo what happened to a 16-year-old girl. Chapter 29, What Happened to Taiwan. The Pai Hsiao-yen case changed Taiwan. The public was furious. People questioned whether police had done enough. They questioned how media had covered the kidnapping, and they also questioned the country had been unable to stop 30 violent crimes from continuing their crime spree for months. The political consequences were significant. The government faced intense criticism over public safety and law enforcement. Senior officials recognized and the backlash resigned. The case became the symbol of Taiwan's growing concerns about violent crimes. But perhaps one of the most lasting effects involved the media. The case forced Taiwan to confront an uncomfortable question. How much access should journalists have during an active kidnapping? The answer was no longer theoretical. The consequences have been witnessed by an entire country. End of part 3. The fugitives were gone. The trial was approaching its end, but the story of Pai Hsiao-yen was far from over. Thank you for listening to today's episode, part 3 of Pai Hsiao-yen kidnapping, or known as Pai Bing-bing kidnapping. I don't know why. Anyways, thank you for listening to today's episode, and I will see you in the last part of Pai Hsiao-yen kidnapping, and then we'll move on to the next case. Bye bye.